spawning to the lower left hand position as the yellow Protoss player. Representing ATN, it is Monty. And his opponent to the top right, the red Terran, none other than Team Properties MorroW. Just replying to Take TV there. I believe this is game number 1. We did join rather rushed to try and minimize downtime, and unfortunately I think we all forgot to check if it was definitely game 1, but I believe it is. I don't see how it couldn't be. So yeah, going to be jumping in and seeing some cool action here. PvT, great matchup, a lot of tough things going to be coming through. And there's different phases to PvT, there's some big all-ins both players can go for, some nice timings. But generally speaking, it comes down to early game before stim. The Protoss players generally have a good position, gateway units a bit more effective than just Marines on their own or Marines Marauders on their own. Then get into the mid game when Stim and Medevacs come out, and then it's basically a frantic race for Protoss players to attempt to get out Splash in some form. Be that something cool like Colossi or High Templar with Storm, either's fine. Obviously then there is those all-ins and kind of more unusual builds, stuff like Archon, Charge Guard all-ins and stuff like that, or some big plays, some mech builds from Terran, but generally that's what you see. In late game it's all about army composition on both sides. The Colossi and High Templar of either Ghosts and Vikings from the Terran. So some cool things should be coming on. Probe now, getting an early scout down. This is a lot earlier than MorroW is going to be able to scout. He's going for a Reaper expand, most likely. Reapers up against Protoss are a little bit irritating. Arguably not as effective as against Zerg, because Stalkers and the Mothership Core both very effective at dealing with them, whereas early game Zerg only has Queens. But it's still pretty cool. You can get in. If there isn't a Mothership Core for whatever reason, quite often you can get some sweet damage down and be happy about that. So, gonna be looking to see how Monty deals with it all. MorroW though, expanding out just on cue, right as he should, and then throws out a reactor in order to start pumping some Marines quite efficiently. Should see a couple more barracks, maybe we'll see a factory, but considering MorroW has pulled out of gas all but one, more likely to see a few more barracks first, just to be playing it safe. Monty as well, he's expanding, he's got his Nexus now, coming down, keeping a close eye on things. Second gas also coming through, but right on cue, Mothership Core out. This Reaper's going to have a tough job to get much actual damage done. Managing to pick off a probe though. He's done a good job, but dies in the process. And this is the danger. One probe for one Reaper, not a good trade for MorroW. MorroW though, he seems more content just macroing up. Throws out a bunker at the front to make sure he's a bit safer from this Mothership Core and the probable Stalker aggression that follows up. A lot of Protoss players more than happy to get out one Stalker, maybe two, and just come and try their chances at the front. Because if this bunker's not here, actually, those two Stalkers can do awesome things. Robotics facility on its way out for Monty, so he's playing a very tech-greedy build at the moment. Not insanely so, but relatively. If we see, say, a robotics bay straight off the back of it, then yeah, it's a greedy play. Or a forge, equally, it's all about that tech. And if you do get a lot of tech out very early, you weaken your defensive capabilities in the short term. Same as if you were to expand very quickly or something like that. So for the moment, just the observers coming out. This is going to give Monty a good read on precisely what MorroW's doing, and that's important. He's also adding in the Twilight Council now as well. Blink is a great upgrade, and yeah, if you start getting Blink plays down against Terran, they're going to get annoyed with you. The Season 2 maps are less good for those Blink all-ins that were a real staple of Season 1 PvT, but doesn't mean they're ineffective by any means. Starport now coming down. We've also got Widow Mines coming out, so Widow Mine drops are a distinct possibility. Trying to work out where all of these... Okay, a lot of the Marines actually in the main base, just protecting it from any Oracle play. There's actually going to be a Dark Shrine coming down from Monty now, going into those DTs, and that can be bad times if you're not prepared for them, especially if they're dropped in. So this is exciting now for Monty. He wants to get a lot of harassment down. investing heavily in these DTs. And I say investing heavily, even if you get one out, it is a big investment for Protoss players. It's a tech path that doesn't offer any splash damage, aside from Archons, which are kind of semi there, but still not perfect. That medevac being seen with a double mine in it ready to start harassing. Monty only sitting at the moment, actually does have 2 observers, so going to be moving that second one back, and that means that the mine drop unlikely to achieve anything. Also, by the positioning of this medevac coming into the main, it won't be able to see the Dark Shrine that's nuzzled at the back of the natural base. That as well, really important for Monty, getting the element of surprise there. MorroW does have his engineering bay on its way, and for his sake I'm really hoping that he chucks down a missile turret, because otherwise a DT will really ruin his day. But the missile turret generally comes down to the front, so may not see the drop in. Down come those Widow mines. Where's the medevac going to go? That's the important thing. One massive hit on that mine, but more importantly, the medevac coming over sees the Dark Shrine. That confirms that there will 100% be missile turrets. Can they get out in time? Medevac falls. Widow mine burrowing up. Is he going to get a good hit as well? Yes, he will. 9 workers killed. Where are those Dark Templar? They're in the main. They're coming through. Missile turret frantically trying to get made, but with 2 DTs there, could try and focus it down. There's also nothing to actually attack it at the moment, so that missile turret taking a decent chunk of damage, being repaired up very efficiently though. A couple more Marines get taken out, but while the DT backs away from the detection range, he'll be able to rack up a few more kills there. At the natural, a couple of worker kills went down as well, but scans being used just to clear that harassment up. 10 workers killed by Monty, 9 killed by MorroW with his Widow mines. So a fairly even game at the moment. Not really a massive advantage coming on either side. The resources lost, only 50 difference between them. MorroW though, he is doing something a bit unusual. Going mech. Blue flame coming down. This is going to be cool. Mech up against Protoss isn't super common by any means. Generally, to combat it, you're going to be looking heavily towards getting out a lot of Immortals, and that's to deal with the tanks. Immortals really going to be playing a key role, and already we see Monty doing that, having scouted the fact that there was 3 factories there. Once you know there's 3 factories, you know it's mech. Of course it's mech. There's no other build that involves 3 factories from Terran. The armory as well would be a nice giveaway. So +1 coming down there from MorroW. Meanwhile, we've got Monty taking a 3rd. That's being built actually at that 3rd base location. So while MorroW does have his 3rd CC, now morphed into an orbital command, he needs to float it over to that 3rd base. That 3rd base is an interesting one to defend, because while the tanks can position themselves nicely through this area, which will defend the natural and 1 entrance to the 3rd, remember, there's this side. That means the tank line ends up having to be very long before you even start factoring in drops. But MorroW, he's aware how deadly drops could be, and as such, adds in the Widow Mine, adds in the Viking to pick off any War Prism play. Now, I want to touch on this Ghost Academy, because this is the key to making mech work against Protoss. It's the EMPs. If they don't hit the money, you just don't win. And the reason the EMPs are so critical is because you need to be able to knock out the shields of those Immortals. If there's no shields on the Immortals, they die. They die fast, and the tanks reign supreme. However, if the EMPs are denied through feedbacks or something like that, actually, you run into some big problems, and the Immortals will just come crushing through, using their hardened shields to reduce the tank damage, and you have a bad time. Monty, splitting his army up, half ready to go into the back of the 3rd, half ready to push in towards the natural, splitting MorroW's army up. But MorroW, he's already got a decent tank count. He's producing more, adding in more production with 2 additional factories. And with all of this, he should be adequately positioned to defend most of this pressure coming through. This bunker up on the high ground as well is quite a smart choice, just so if any Blinkstalkers snuck through here, where actually the tanks don't have much coverage, they do a bit, they can't just blink up into the high ground and sneak on by. It also prevents any observers, as we just saw, getting through, which is another nice move. So the Stargate nearly done for Monty. Tempest really are actually a good choice because of their range. You can look to try and take out these tanks, and it is potentially a really smart move that we may be seeing out of Monty. Obviously, there's tons of other stuff you can be adding in as well, because generally speaking, unless the Viking count gets super high, which obviously at the moment only at 1 it isn't, you don't have to be too scared. This War Prism just escaping with 12 HP. And that's good because there was a Dark Templar in there. And also those 2 Zealots. But you've got to be pretty sure you don't start losing things like that War Prism. Drop play, shut down. SCV coming over as well, just to get a little peek at what was happening. The Vikings still patrolling. But I doubt that War Prism is going to be trying to much more. Fleet Beacon being added in now. The second Stargate also on its way through. So that's preparing just to make sure that nothing crazy comes through. Everything probably going to be gearing up towards some Tempest production. Potentially it will be carriers, but that's a lot less likely. Tempest with their range are a great response to this heavy tank composition, and really the best one. A lone Hellion getting some good scouting information down, but I doubt that he shouldn't be able to get up into the main, but I think he's going to do it. There's no warpins or anything like that. Zealots, Archons, everything chasing the Hellion, who's going for some damage, and this could actually be a problem, but the scan sees it. It sees everything, I believe. Was that Fleet Beacon seen? Yep, so Fleet Beacon can be spotted. And now, of course, the Viking production will skyrocket. The Vikings really the essential piece to the puzzle, and just as in any other matchup, a meching Terran gets scary when they get closer to being maxed out. The army just becomes this death ball that you don't feel like you can ever engage with any kind of composition. A contain can work really nicely, but not if, of course, there's that many tanks. They all siege up. A couple of shots already going down. A good number of ghosts as well setting up here. There is actually in total 7 ghosts prepared, waiting to EMP. But there's also a lot of Blinkstalkers now coming through the sensor tower, granting a lot of vision, allowing this immobile mech force to get it back. But the Stalker's going straight in, trying to pick up a lot of SCVs, but they've got themselves cornered. This opens up the front though, as all of MorroW's forces come back, allowing these Archons to start working through the command center. The Blinkstalkers trying to find anywhere they could possibly go, but so many tanks. Command center now nearly falling, but just getting away. The EMP hits a couple of those Immortals, and this is dangerous times. MorroW needs to repair up that command center though, bringing a couple of SCVs to do that, preventing it from burning down. But ready and waiting, the Stalkers on their way across, trying to just pull apart MorroW's defense. Trying to say, MorroW, you need to be everywhere at once, and that's something that mech really struggles with. Mech strength, as I previously mentioned, is all in its just overall army size. A couple of Stalkers now making their way into the natural base. These Blinkstalkers being irritating. A couple also trying to buy a bit more time for them. All in all, Monty's got a 41 SCVs. That's insanely high. Vikings landing as well to try and engage this. Note there hasn't been any use out of those Stargates yet. Instead, just been seeing nothing but Immortal production. Stalkers still blinking around, getting a good little look at everything they could possibly find. But a lot of the army, again, has been pulled out of position. This is allowing Monty to go in and engage these tanks head on. Archon's relatively good at soaking up their damage. The Immortals dealing tons of damage and also not taking too much. This is good times from Monty. He took out a good number of tanks and is going to be very happy. Observer count is currently sitting at 1. This is a big vulnerability because if that goes down and the tank count keeps rising and actually MorroW doesn't keep getting split apart, if the Observer dies, if there are any Tempest late game, they won't have vision in order to start taking out those tanks. So the Immortal count skyrocketing. 12 Immortals with 2 more coming out at a time. Huge production from these robotics facilities. The majority of the army on Monty's side made up of those Immortals. The 22 Stalkers aren't done yet though. They're still harassing, they're still trying to find a nice avenue to attack it. Tank getting blinked on top of. Taken down fast, a lot of Hellbats also falling. A big pullback of all of this army, and yet again MorroW keeping his army together. The Stalkers get hit by an EMP, but trick me once, shame on you, trick me twice, shame on me. MorroW pulls back to make sure that this split push doesn't start hitting again. The EMPs on the mark, reducing the shields of those Immortals, preventing them doing much, but the Stalkers pushing in yet again now. This is multi-prong attacking to the maximum. The Hellbat's trying to get some shots off, the 2 tanks on the ramp, sieged in a good position. They get blinked on. These Stalkers, though, getting fairly low. However, the Immortals with shields back up, push through, snipe out those tanks, and are now going for the Planetary Fortress. This many Immortals destroy buildings so fast. A lot of damage being done. MorroW now down to just 3 bases again. He's at 51 workers compared to the 72 probes and 4 bases of the Protoss player. And resources lost, actually fairly equal. Favouring Monty, though, by just over 1,000. So if he's got a better economy, losing less, and trading well, that usually signals a player who's in a nice spot. Upgrades are fairly similar. I'm going to be going slightly into MorroW's favour now, as he's about to get 3-2 compared to 3-1. But Monty, not actually upgrading anything at the moment. Needs to be keeping an eye on those upgrades for risk of falling a bit too far behind. MorroW tucked up. His army fairly small at only 95 supply, and this is allowing his 3rd base to take a lot of damage. MorroW needs to respond to this. Loses his 3rd orbital command. That is a massive loss. I'm not quite sure where his attention was at, because by not repositioning, he's just lost the 3rd base. Sure, he's got spare orbital commands he can bring over, but he can't keep allowing himself to do that. Banshee coming through. Banshee would be an alright choice if it was only Immortals and Colossi, for example. But we've got a good number of Stalkers. Those Banshee can get taken down very quickly. Repeated scans also coming through, trying to get a good little peek in the main base of what's happening. Stalkers again trying to move up, but they're wandering straight into the majority of the army here. MorroW pushing in towards the 3rd. Good little time warp here. 2 tanks at the back, getting some decent damage down. EMPs have destroyed all the shields on those Immortals, so they're going to have to retreat or risk getting taken out. Full retreat now in progress. Attempting to back away. MorroW, though, laying chase. Able to snipe out a good number of units with these Banshee. Going to be a bit of a problem now for Monty, who doesn't have any anti-air on this left side of the map. All of his Stalkers were on the right. A lot of them have been taken out. Really starting to hurt. So, things relatively level still. The worker advantage and income advantage on Monty's side. But MorroW, he's keeping up in terms of the overall supplies. Army supply is great. His upgrades are better. But he's soon going to have to contend with Tempest. I so long ago now remember those Stargates being constructed and the fleet beacon on its way, but if it doesn't really produce anything, it's not really worthwhile. Late game, you need those. My concern though is the Air Force is still pretty sizable. Some more Stalkers would actually be okay, because the tank count isn't huge at this stage of the game. These Banshee doing so much damage. Able to pick up these Archons and these Stalkers very quickly. The Immortals obviously powerless to stop the damage being done. Down goes a couple more of those Immortals. Problem times indeed. We see the Pylon also get taken out. Quick little look now and a recap of what's happened so far. So we've seen Monty be very aggressive, able to take out and really pull apart MorroW's army, allowing him to engage it in sizable chunks. MorroW, on the other hand, has been very defensive all game, playing this mech strategy up against Protoss. My concern for him is that these Tempests are on the field. They've got the range, they've got the damage output. They haven't really got too much to contend with. There's only 8 Vikings and we've got 4 more Stargates on the way. And this is due to Monty's great economy. Sitting up at 5 bases, 75 probes, compared to MorroW, who's only on 4 bases, soon to be 5, with his 40 SCVs. Sure, he's got tons of orbital commands. He's sitting at 6 orbital commands, so he's got a good number of mules. But regardless, a better upgrade lead or a better position economically for Monty. The upgrade lead though is over at MorroW's side. He needs to be trying to find... Monty needs to be trying to find a way to really level out those upgrades, get the armor upgrades coming through as well. The Tempest count though, coming up. The +1 air weapons coming down. And with that, things are looking good. Nice little run in here with a lot of Zealots. Up against Hellbat, Zealots don't trade amazingly, especially in a tight show like that though. So with Blue Flame, they're shredded. From the right though, Monty going for a big play. MorroW just got so much stuff again. He's up in overall supply, 190 to 188. And his army supply, about 30 supply ahead, due to having a much lower worker count. So, down go a couple of orbital commands, these Tempests shelling away. Dealing some really nice damage here, and picking these off is a big win, because it reduces the number of mules. And without mules, MorroW's economy does start to struggle a bit. He's nearly mined out this gold base that really has been a lifeline. So this top left will shortly be his only mining base, forcing MorroW to trade very carefully. Monty, yet to touch his gold, is mining off of 2.5 bases, thanks to obviously not having any mules to have to deal with. Another orbital command taking a bit more damage, a scan coming through. A quick little lift from the Tempest, moving around the side. The Observer going to be doing its utmost to grant vision, but with missile turrets everywhere, it's going to be quite hard to do that. In comes the Tempest though, they should start focusing down those missile turrets, indeed they do. The Vikings in a good position, the Viking count quite high as well, 13 up against 15 Tempest. And they'll trade very well against the Tempest, due to how much damage they can get out. PDDs being used, preventing those Tempests from dishing any damage back, and that's allowing the Vikings to overwhelmingly win this fight. So many Tempests going down. Meanwhile, on the right, only a couple of Immortals remain. The Banshee trying to duke it out with those Tempests, but not going to be able to help at all. And with the PDDs now down, back the Vikings full. 10 Tempests, 11 Vikings on the field. A hallucinated Colossus taking some of the damage up. And still, at 31 minutes, this game looks relatively equal. I don't want to say completely equal though, because of course we do have MorroW now up by a good chunk of supplies, nearly double his opponent's army supply. But these Tempests still there. The Viking count has to keep rising. And I'm interested to see Monty just continually pumping nothing but Tempest down. He's got the +1 air weapon, so he's got the superiority there. But he has to try and find a way to get some more damage down. MorroW really doing everything he can to just wait out his opponent. He's been so defensive, so passive throughout. And it's paying off for him now. He's got the right composition. These point defense drones really doing their work. The Immortal is now starting to fall. That was the last Immortal that Monty had. The Tempest now trying to mount a stand, but their numbers quickly falling up against those 18 Vikings. So much damage being done. The Nexus falls, the Tempest dying, and MorroW will take game number 1 of this best of 3.